Well, let me go into the why of current events. And this is not a why I've come up with in the last few days. It's a why I've been talking about for a long time. And I have this phrase, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. If you don't know what the outcomes plan to be, then events in the world appear random. They appear unexplainable, bewildering. But if you know what the outcomes plan to be, then they become very clear stepping stones, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe to that outcome. So it's so important that people hold the global level of this control system.
Yeah.
Because what I've seen since COVID and all these people started coming out of the mainstream to take the alternative media over, is it's regressed. And it's regressed from a understanding that we live in one-party states, where if you go back into the shadows with either of the major parties, or even three in some countries or more, you are hitting the same force manipulating from the shadows. And they use something that I refer to as designer manipulation. If you want to push to a certain collective outcome, then it's no good manipulating different belief systems the same way, because you're going to get some, but you ain't going to get the rest. So what you do is you design your manipulation to the belief system you're targeting. So what's the outcome? I mean, there's many outcomes, but this is the bottom line of bottom line outcomes. They want artificial intelligence to run the entire human system, which can be centrally controlled, by the way. And they want a fusion of the human brain, a human body, and artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. When you tell people what they want to hear, the door is swinging open because they want it to be true. When you're telling people, and this has been my experience over the years, of course, what they don't want to hear, then the door is solid shut with a padlock on it because they don't want it to be true. The question is, if we're mature, not do I want it to be true or don't I want it to be true? Is it bloody true? That's the question. And so that was a phase. It was a phase of control along the lines of the totalitarian tiptoe, going from A to B to C, but you know you're going to Z eventually. And that Z is total AI control of the entire global society. So there comes a point where the system that has served you up to this stage is no longer applicable, because you need to replace that with your endgame, if you like, AI control system. So what you need to do is crash and burn the system that you have created in terms of this global cult. And what you do to do that is you get people to appear to be doing it for one reason when they're doing it for a completely different reason. And they're getting the people that are being lassoed into this AI control system to cheer the demise of their freedom, masquerading as freedom, excuse me, freedom being saved.
There seems to be a clear split. You know, it might go back to Obama, but there's definitely no denying that by 2015, 2016, the split has sort of happened where they're pushing people off to the sides again.
So you engage in the classic technique of all tyrants and tyrannies, which is divide and rule. So now they have created, and you know, Trump has been a vehicle for this, a focus of attention for this, to create this this division. What I found compelling and what I'm always looking for is patterns of agreement among belief systems that would otherwise disagree on almost everything.
Right. Okay.
So
even going back, but even ancient.
Yeah, ancient and modern. And so when you look at the ancient cultures, and I did long ago now, you see that they are telling the same story. They're just using different names for the negative force and its minions.
The destructive force, yeah.
Yeah, that they're talking about. So if you look at Christianity, they talk about Satan, the devil, and minions that serve that, what I say is a consciousness, a very distorted, inverted consciousness, called demons. If you look at Islam, they talk about shaitan, not Satan, and Iblis, and they talk about the jinn as the minions. Then you look at the Gnostic belief system, you mentioned Yaldabaoth, and the archons minions, archons being a Greek word meaning rulers appropriately. And wherever you look around the world, in these different cultures, they're telling the same story. In Central America, some shamans talk about, the predators. There's different names, but they're telling the same story. And that is a force operating outside of human sight, consistently, that is manipulating human society. It's doing it by manipulating human perception. And it's doing it directly, if we fall for it, by the manipulation of our consciousness fields. But it's also doing it via this global cult as well, and playing people off against each other. And I've been saying all along that the stadium on which this entire conspiracy is played out is human perception. That's everything. Everything they do is about controlling, manipulating that, because we behave as we do, because we perceive as we do. And we perceive as we do because of the information we receive from which we form those perceptions. This is what censorship's all about. And, that information can be personal experiences. It can be a television news item. It can be a Facebook post, whatever. But we're forming our perceptions from the information we receive.
But it's hard to not come at that whole religion and Bible thing as just being a giant control mechanism for its time. But lately we seem to be confronted with real evil, and in the face of all this, there seems to be a giant like a resurgence in Christianity and in faith.
Yeah.
And is that like by design, or so is
that's by design? That's by design. You see, again, you can look at a situation and you can see it for what it is without having to follow a bloody religion. Now, that is a real big problem when you have a Bible that is extraordinarily contradictory. There's some great lines in the Bible, and there's some absolute contradictory dross. I'm saying I'm an aspect of a consciousness that is the infinite awareness of which we're all an expression. Yes, I am saying that. And this is the point. From around the turn of the millennium, I've been absolutely convinced, and there weren't many around at that time who were saying it. Found one guy called Nick Bostrom, a professor at Oxford University. And I was convinced that we lived in some kind of virtual reality simulation that had been created to entrap perception in a fake reality. That's the biggie. It's anxiety, it's depression, it's resentment, it's hatred, and all these low vibrational emotions. And joy and love and happiness are high, fast frequencies. And what they want to do is keep us in a low vibrational state, because our energetic fields are dictated by our perceptions of reality. You know, when people are in a state of depression, they say, "Oh, I feel so heavy today. Oh, life's so heavy." That's because their state of being is generating low, slow frequencies that are making their energetic field vibrate very slowly, very densely. That's why they feel heavy. And then you get people who are in a state of happiness and joy, and they say, "Oh, I feel so light today," because they're generating through their perceptions high frequencies that are vibrating their energetic field in a much more vibrant way. And what they need to do, and there are other reasons for this, which we'll get into another time, is keep us in that low vibrational state, because they keep us, therefore, within the perceptual range of the matrix. We are in the matrix and of the matrix. Once you start to go through a true awakening, not awakening to Trump, a true awakening to the nature of the true I, the true identity, which is a state of infinite awareness, then suddenly you start to see things you couldn't see before.
So would this be like the ancient Maya Thoron?
Because you're accessing levels of awareness, knowledge, insight, perception that are outside, because you're expanding your self-identity. Thus, that automatically expands your field into these other realms beyond the simulation, beyond the matrix, where you can access things and access insights which give you a totally different view of the world. Suddenly, you're not seeing random events anymore. Suddenly, you're seeing how it all connects, because you're no longer being subjected only to the systematic suppression of your state of awareness. True awakening, not fake awakening. You have got to yourself expand your awareness and your frequency so that you can make that connection, and you can access that awareness, that knowledge. If you meet someone and you greet them, hello, and you ask them, "Well, who are you?" What they'll do is they'll give you your name, their name. They'll give you their job, probably their place of birth, where they live, and all these, their religion, and all these things. We're not Bill down the call center, or Fred driving the bus, or Ethel on the checkout. They're just experiences. All of those people are ultimately consciousness that's been manipulated to disconnect from the influence of its true self. It's like you're on a desert island, and you've been cut off from all other access to all other levels of civilization. You only know the island, and you're born onto the island, and that's basically the situation that humanity's in. And it's we talk about this spiritual war between good and evil. Well, what we call evil is that which has created this virtual reality matrix prison and wants to keep us in it. And what we call good is that beyond the prison, in a frequency beyond the prison, that's screaming at us, "Wake up, you're being shafted." And I've said in the books over the years, if I look at, say, the God of the Old Testament, the traits of that God are all those of this force that created the matrix. And once that self-identity starts to expand, suddenly you're going to find you're seeing things you couldn't see before. You are aware of things you weren't aware of before. You can see how things connect. What we have to do is play our part in expanding our awareness through reevaluating our self-identity and connect with it. And then everything changes. And that's what this force that's created this simulated prison cell wants to stop. And you know, if it can create, there's other reasons why it does this, by the way, but if it can create wars and conflicts and depression and divide and rule and belief systems that are played off against each other instead of respecting everyone's right to have their own opinion, so long as they don't impose it on anyone else, then if you can do that, then you are holding attention in what I call the drama. You know, what we're experiencing in this reality is a bloody drama, constant drama. Oh, have you heard the latest? Oh my God, you'll never guess what's happened now. Drama, drama, drama. And what is that doing? It's focusing attention within the very fake reality. This global cult, with its Satanism and what have you, is using esoteric knowledge, which is basically how the reality works, for its own ends and very, very malevolent ends. But you can also use it for very positive ends. Depends on the intent behind what you're doing. And there were a mixture of manipulative books in that period you talk about, and some very, very good ones. And the whole you know, period of the Roman Catholic Church going around not just Europe but the United States and destroying anyone that had a different belief system. This is all part of the control to keep you in the matrix. And there was a lady who worked there called Hypatia, who was torn apart by a mob, a Roman church mob, on the instigation of a guy called Cyril. Some of the greatest mass killers in history have been made saints, because the Roman church is not there to enlighten people. If you're born in the Hindu part of the world, or in a Hindu family in another part of the world, the chances of you being a Hindu are phenomenal. If you're born in the Middle East, your chances of being a Muslim are phenomenal. If you're born in the southern states of the United States, the chances of you being a Christian are phenomenal. Now, that is an indication, and let's put this into context, of the 8 billion people that's supposed to be on the planet, 5.4 billion associate themselves with either Christianity, Islam, or Hinduism. And what this tells you is they're not coming to their own conclusions. They're not looking at all the possibilities and coming to their own unique conclusion. They're coming to the conclusion that they're told to have since they were born. Had those kids been born literally down the street in the Jewish quarter or the Christian quarter, they'd now have a very different view of life, themselves, identity, the world, God, all of it. The only difference is what they've been subjected to since they were born. And you know, you take that process, that technique of perceptual downloading, and you then apply that to the human race in general. And that's how a few, and it is by goodness a few, can control 8 billion people. They do it by controlling what they think, what they perceive, and thus how they behave. It cares that you believe something rigidly, because then they gotcha.
I love it.
Absolutely. David Icke, this has been great. I mean, I got to say, I have been to Leicester. I was in Leicester last summer. I got to give a shout out to one of our big supporters and longtime listeners here, because he lives in Melton Mowbray, which I think
Melton Mowbray. Educating yourself on your terms is what real education is.
I love it. Yeah, we love
Absolutely.
carrots. Yeah, it's awesome. All right.
David,
Thanks, David.
thanks for coming on the show. We
Thanks,
appreciate
mate.
it. Come back anytime.
All the best to your wife. Bye.
See
Bye.
ya.
And that was our chat with the enigmatic David Icke. Finally, I mean, it took over a decade, but I feel like we had to make that show happen. It was a good one. And what do you think?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I love it.